There was a point in Bruce Lee's life that never appeared in interviews, documentaries, or public demonstrations, yet it quietly reshaped the way he understood conflict. It was not a fight that ended with victory or defeat, but a situation where action was available and expected, and restraint became the more difficult choice. In that moment, Bruce Lee faced the kind of pressure that tempts even the most disciplined individuals to react, and instead of proving his ability, he chose awareness. That decision revealed a depth of mastery that went far beyond physical skill and into the realm of judgment, clarity, and long-term thinking. Bruce Lee believed that the first and most important step in any tense situation was not movement, but understanding. He knew that reacting too quickly, without fully grasping what was happening, often leads people into trouble they never intended to create. Many conflicts begin not because danger is real, but because emotions are misunderstood and assumptions take control. Bruce Lee trained himself to slow down internally, even when everything around him felt urgent. By doing so, he could see details that others missed, such as body language, tone, distance, and intent. These small signals often reveal whether a situation is genuinely threatening or simply charged with emotion and pride. He understood that not every aggressive posture means violence is inevitable, and not every loud moment requires an equal response. Awareness allowed him to distinguish between someone seeking confrontation and someone reacting out of fear, insecurity, or misunderstanding. This distinction mattered deeply, because responding to the wrong situation with force could turn a harmless moment into a lasting problem. Bruce Lee valued clarity over speed, knowing that the fastest reaction is not always the smartest one. By taking time to observe, he gained control over the direction the moment would take. Another reason awareness mattered to him was energy preservation. Bruce Lee viewed physical and mental energy as limited resources that should not be wasted on unnecessary conflict. When a person reacts impulsively, they spend energy solving problems that may not have existed in the first place. Awareness helped him decide where his energy was truly needed and where it was better conserved. This mindset allowed him to remain prepared for real danger instead of exhausting himself on imagined threats or emotional challenges. He also understood that once action is taken, consequences follow whether they are intended or not. A single reaction can escalate a situation beyond control, drawing in other people, legal consequences, or long-term repercussions that far outlast the original moment. Awareness gave Bruce Lee the ability to foresee these outcomes before they happened. By understanding the full picture, he could choose responses that minimized damage rather than multiplied it. This foresight was not accidental. It was the result of constant mental discipline and reflection. Bruce Lee's awareness extended inward as well. He paid attention to his own emotional state, recognizing when anger, pride, or impatience tried to influence his decisions. He believed that a person who cannot observe their own emotions will always be controlled by them. By noticing these internal signals early, he prevented them from dictating his actions. This self-awareness allowed him to respond thoughtfully instead of reactively, maintaining control even under pressure. Through this approach, Bruce Lee demonstrated that awareness is not passive or hesitant, but deeply active and intentional. It requires effort, patience, and discipline to remain present when others rush forward. Awareness becomes a form of protection, guiding decisions before situations spiral out of control. By prioritizing understanding over immediate action, Bruce Lee showed that the strongest position is often the one taken before movement begins. In his philosophy, awareness was not simply a tool for avoiding conflict, but a foundation for living with clarity, responsibility, and long-term wisdom. Bruce Lee understood that in moments of conflict, tension, or uncertainty, the instinct to act immediately is almost universal. Most people believe that courage is measured by their willingness to move, to respond, or to assert themselves in the heat of the moment. Yet, what appears to be bravery can often be little more than an emotional reaction. Acting too quickly provides instant relief from fear, anxiety, or pressure, but it also traps a person in the consequences of that choice. Every move has repercussions, and impulsive action can escalate situations unnecessarily or create outcomes that could have been avoided with a moment of thoughtful restraint. Bruce Lee recognized this deeply, understanding that the true test of strength is not always in what one does, but in what one chooses not to do. When people feel provoked, angered, or challenged, their bodies and minds demand an outlet. It is easier psychologically to engage, to strike, to speak, to assert dominance. because doing something satisfies the immediate urge to release tension. However, Bruce Lee saw that this immediate gratification comes at a cost. Every action taken in haste without full awareness carries the potential for unintended consequences. Relationships, reputations, and personal safety can all be affected by a split-second decision made under pressure. In this light, doing nothing becomes an act not of cowardice, but of profound control, requiring far more mental strength than the simple act of reacting. Bruce Lee's philosophy of restraint emphasizes patience and deliberate choice. Choosing to remain still or silent does not mean indecision. It means that one has considered all available options, weighed the potential outcomes, and decided that the most effective course is to preserve the situation oneself or others. Restraint requires endurance, the ability to carry tension, discomfort, and uncertainty without letting it dictate behavior. Unlike impulsive action, which resolves tension temporarily but may create larger problems, restraint is a conscious investment in long-term stability and clarity. Choosing not to act can serve as a tool to gain perspective. Bruce Lee knew that the heat of the moment can cloud judgment, making it difficult to assess true threats and intentions. By taking a step back and refusing to act immediately, he allowed space for insight to emerge. In that pause, information becomes clearer, motivations are better understood, and the risk of miscalculation diminishes. The ease of action may feel satisfying, but its simplicity is deceptive, often disguising its dangers. In contrast, the challenge of restraint cultivates foresight, discernment, and patience, qualities that are essential not only in martial arts, but in life itself. The choice to refrain from action is also a demonstration of self-mastery. Bruce Lee's restraint was a reflection of his mental training as much as his physical skill. He understood that discipline is exercised as much in moments of temptation as in moments of necessity. The ability to endure pressure without giving in to instinctive responses is what separates the superficially strong from the genuinely powerful. True mastery, in his view, was not about proving dominance or winning every confrontation. It was about maintaining composure, clarity, and control, even when action seemed inevitable. Bruce Lee recognized that the consequences of action are not always predictable. Even when confident in his skill, he understood that the dynamics of a situation involve more than his own abilities. Other individuals' reactions, environmental variables, and chance events can all amplify the impact of a single move. Acting impulsively ignores these factors and increases risk. By choosing inaction strategically, he minimized exposure to uncontrolled outcomes and preserved his freedom to respond later, if necessary, under more favorable circumstances. This demonstrates a deeper level of strategic thinking that goes beyond conventional notions of bravery. Bruce Lee reframed what it means to be courageous. He taught that courage is not measured solely by visible acts of aggression or immediate intervention, but by the strength to endure discomfort and make choices aligned with long-term wisdom. Choosing not to act in the moment of potential conflict is not avoidance, it is the conscious exercise of judgment, self-control, and insight. This perspective transforms our understanding of strength, showing that the easiest choice, action, may not be the right one, and that the most difficult choice, restraint, often requires the greatest fortitude. In his life and philosophy, Bruce Lee demonstrated that true power is measured not just by what is done, but by the restraint exercised in what could have been done, revealing a level of mastery few ever attain. Bruce Lee understood that stillness is not the absence of strength, but a profound form of power that provides clarity. In any tense or potentially dangerous situation, movement can cloud judgment, provoke reactions, and obscure the true nature of events. People often rush to act, believing that any delay is weakness, yet impulsive responses frequently distort reality rather than illuminate it. By choosing to remain still, Bruce Lee created a mental and physical space where he could observe the unfolding dynamics with precision. Every gesture, every glance, every shift and weight from others became visible and meaningful because he had chosen to suspend immediate action. Stillness in his practice became a tool for understanding the full spectrum of the environment, allowing him to perceive nuances that would otherwise go unnoticed. This stillness was not passive. It required discipline, awareness, and patience. Remaining motionless while the world around him moved demanded a mastery of both mind and body. Bruce Lee knew that humans are inclined to fill tension with action, yet it is precisely the restraint from doing so that can provide the clearest insight. By holding back, he could see how others responded to stimuli, whether they acted out of genuine intent, fear, frustration, or misunderstanding. These subtle signals, often invisible to those reacting impulsively, were critical in shaping his decisions. Through stillness, he could gauge the intentions, emotions, and capabilities of everyone involved, giving him a profound advantage not through force, but through comprehension. Stillness allowed Bruce Lee to access his own internal clarity. Rapid movement or reaction often triggers instinctual responses influenced by adrenaline, stress, or ego. By choosing to remain still, he could separate immediate emotion from rational thought. This mental calmness enabled him to see patterns, anticipate outcomes, and evaluate risk with far greater precision than if he had been swept up in the act of fighting or defending. In this way, stillness functioned as both a reflective mirror and a strategic lens, sharpening his perception and enhancing his decision-making in real time. Stillness also serves as a method of revealing truth in the actions of others. When one remains composed and refrains from immediate reaction, those around often expose their intentions unconsciously. Aggression, hesitation, or respect becomes apparent without verbal communication. Bruce Lee's mastery of this principle allowed him to observe motivations clearly, understanding who posed a true threat and who was acting from impulse or ego. Movement, conversely, can obscure these signals, blending them into chaotic displays that mask the underlying reality. By staying motionless, he allowed the truth to present itself naturally, without interference or distortion. Stillness creates a space for timing and measured response. Action, when taken too soon, can foreclose opportunities and escalate situations unnecessarily. By pausing, Bruce Lee retained the freedom to choose the exact moment, if any, to intervene. This approach demonstrates that power is not always about doing more, but about preserving options. When one acts prematurely, choices become limited and mistakes more costly. By practicing stillness, he maintained maximum flexibility and control over outcomes, highlighting a dimension of strength that goes far beyond physical capability. Stillness also has a psychological impact on others. People often expect immediate reactions in tense situations, and the refusal to conform to this expectation can unsettle opponents or observers. Bruce Lee's calm composure in moments of potential conflict demonstrated confidence and control that commanded respect without force. Those around him were compelled to reveal their intentions through their own actions, responding to his quiet authority rather than his physical presence alone. In this way, stillness is not merely passive observation, it is an active strategy that influences the behavior of others without aggression. Bruce Lee's commitment to stillness underscores a larger philosophical principle that true understanding requires patience, observation, and the courage to resist immediate impulses. By remaining motionless, he allowed life to unfold around him, revealing realities that could not be grasped in haste. This principle extends beyond fighting into all aspects of life, showing that clarity and insight often come from restraint rather than action. In mastering stillness, Bruce Lee demonstrated that the greatest revelations and the most accurate understanding arise not from constant movement or effort, but from the courage to pause, observe, and allow the truth to manifest in its own time. Bruce Lee's philosophy of control went far beyond the simplistic idea of refraining from action. For him, control was not passivity, nor was it inaction born of fear or indecision. It was the conscious exercise of freedom, the ability to act decisively at any moment, paired with the deliberate choice to hold back when it was wiser to do so. In his understanding, strength and restraint are inseparable. True power does not demand constant demonstration. By mastering both his mind and body, Bruce Lee cultivated the ability to observe, assess, and decide without the urgency of immediate reaction. This combination of readiness and patience created a unique form of dominance, one that relied on mental acuity as much as physical prowess. Control, in Bruce Lee's perspective, is grounded in self-awareness. He knew his own capabilities to an extraordinary degree, understanding not only the limits of his physical skill, but also the psychological and emotional elements of confrontation. This awareness allowed him to remain unshaken in the presence of provocation. When others felt compelled to strike, prove themselves, or react, Bruce Lee maintained calm composure. He recognized that the most powerful response is often the one that is delayed, chosen with full understanding rather than forced by impulse. In this way, his restraint was not weakness but a demonstration of supreme confidence in his own abilities. Another critical aspect of Bruce Lee's interpretation of control is the freedom to choose the timing and manner of action. Unlike those who act reactively, often dictated by instinct, adrenaline, or societal expectation, he maintained the autonomy to decide when, where, and how to engage. This strategic patience is what differentiates someone who is truly in control from someone who merely appears powerful. The knowledge that he could act at will, combined with the wisdom to wait when necessary, made him unpredictable and formidable. He did not need to prove strength in every moment because the certainty of his ability rendered such proofs unnecessary. Control also extends to emotional regulation, which Bruce Lee considered just as important as physical mastery. In any potential conflict, emotions like anger, fear, and pride can drive people to act prematurely or destructively. Bruce Lee's discipline allowed him to remain composed under pressure, ensuring that his actions or deliberate inactions were governed by reason rather than emotion. By mastering his internal state, he could interpret the intentions of others, assess the environment accurately, and decide the optimal response without being hijacked by impulsive feelings. This internal control amplifies external control, making restraint a visible form of power that others instinctively respect. Bruce Lee's idea of control emphasized the distinction between capability and necessity. Many people feel compelled to demonstrate what they are capable of, mistaking action for proof of skill or dominance. Bruce Lee understood that real strength does not need constant validation. The true measure of control is the ability to restrain oneself, knowing that action can be taken at any time but is not required to establish authority. This mindset allows one to navigate complex social and physical dynamics with subtlety and intelligence, often achieving results without confrontation or overt displays of power. Control also functions as a protective mechanism. By remaining in command of his choices, Bruce Lee minimized risk to himself and to others. Immediate action may solve a problem temporarily, but can introduce new, unforeseen consequences. By exercising control, he ensured that every decision carried intentionality, reducing the chance of escalation or harm. This careful management of both action and inaction illustrates that control is not the absence of force, but the deliberate and thoughtful regulation of it. It is a conscious balancing of potential energy and measured execution. Bruce Lee's philosophy teaches that true mastery lies in the harmony between ability and restraint. Action without control can be reckless. Control without the ability to act is impotent. He exemplified the principle that power reaches its highest form when one can choose freely between movement and stillness, knowing that either path is available but neither must be forced. This nuanced understanding transforms our conception of strength. It is not measured by how often one acts, nor by the intensity of one's action, but by the wisdom to exercise choice with full awareness. In Bruce Lee's life, control was a living philosophy and ongoing practice that combined mental clarity, emotional intelligence, strategic thinking, and physical skill, illustrating that true mastery is as much about what is held back as what is expressed. Bruce Lee understood that human behavior is often driven by ego, which craves acknowledgement, superiority, and dominance. Ego compels individuals to respond immediately, often without fully assessing the situation, leading to impulsive actions and unintended consequences. Most conflicts are fueled not by necessity, but by the desire to assert control, prove oneself, or demonstrate power. Bruce Lee recognized that reacting solely to preserve pride or to satisfy ego can escalate problems unnecessarily, turning manageable situations into dangerous confrontations. In his philosophy, true mastery involves the ability to separate instinctual reactions from thoughtful choice, ensuring that every action or deliberate inaction is grounded in reason rather than impulse. By consciously removing ego from his decision-making, Bruce Lee created a space for clarity. Instead of reacting to provocation or perceived slights, he assessed the circumstances objectively, evaluating potential outcomes and risks. This level of discernment required immense self-awareness, as the pull of ego is strong and often disguised as confidence or assertiveness. He understood that the absence of reaction does not indicate weakness, but rather demonstrates a higher level of intelligence and emotional maturity. Where ego pushes for immediate engagement, wisdom allows for reflection, restraint, and strategic patience. By cultivating this mindset, Bruce Lee ensured that his actions were measured, purposeful, and aligned with long-term goals, rather than short-term validation. Bruce Lee's approach highlights the contrast between short-term gratification and long-term impact. Ego-driven reactions often provide immediate satisfaction but can result in regret, conflict escalation, and even harm. Wisdom, on the other hand, prioritizes sustainability and foresight. By choosing not to react, Bruce Lee protected both himself and others from unnecessary consequences. He demonstrated that disengagement can be a form of strength, a conscious decision that preserves dignity, maintains relationships, and safeguards one's energy. This lesson is applicable not only in physical confrontations but also in everyday life, where patience and measured responses often yield better outcomes than immediate assertion of dominance. Ego also tends to obscure perception, coloring reality with assumptions and emotional bias. People under the influence of ego often misread intentions, exaggerate threats, or respond defensively to neutral stimuli. Bruce Lee's refusal to react was a method of maintaining an unclouded perspective. By disengaging from the ego-driven narrative, he could observe clearly, make informed decisions, and act only when truly necessary. This ability to maintain objectivity allowed him to navigate complex situations safely, preserving both his physical well-being and his mental clarity. His restraint became a tool for insight, enabling him to see beyond the surface and anticipate outcomes that others driven by pride would overlook. Bruce Lee recognized that the value of wisdom is measured by its ability to prevent mistakes rather than demonstrate superiority. Ego often seeks to assert itself publicly, seeking witnesses and validation for every display of skill or dominance. Wisdom, conversely, is quiet, internal, and far-sighted. By choosing not to react, Bruce Lee removed the need for external approval and focused on what truly mattered: understanding, safety, and long-term effectiveness. This approach transformed potential confrontations into lessons in strategy, patience, and emotional mastery, showing that true power is as much about self-control as it is about skill. Another critical aspect of this philosophy is the relationship between self-respect and restraint. Reacting purely to defend ego may satisfy immediate pride but can erode respect in the long term, either from others or from oneself. Bruce Lee understood that dignity is preserved not by constant assertion but by knowing when to act and when to refrain. Choosing inaction in the face of provocation demonstrates confidence and self-assuredness, signaling that one's value does not depend on external validation. In this sense, wisdom supersedes ego by prioritizing composure, understanding, and integrity over momentary triumph or acknowledgement. Bruce Lee's approach underscores the importance of emotional intelligence in conflict resolution. Ego-driven responses are reactive, emotionally charged, and often blind to context. Wisdom allows for a deliberate analysis of both the external situation and internal state, guiding behavior that is appropriate, measured, and effective. By stepping back and refusing to engage unnecessarily, Bruce Lee exercised control over his emotions and influenced the dynamics of the situation without force. This practice illustrates that the most potent form of strength is not the capacity to dominate physically, but the ability to master one's internal responses and influence outcomes through strategic restraint. Bruce Lee's philosophy teaches that disengagement is not passive, but active intelligence applied to real-world situations. The refusal to satisfy ego-driven impulses allows a person to maintain clarity, make better decisions, and preserve energy for moments where action is truly necessary. Wisdom is not the absence of courage. It is the application of courage in the most effective and thoughtful way. By acting only when justified and remaining still when provocation arises, Bruce Lee demonstrated that the hardest decisions are often those that require doing nothing. This principle elevates mastery from physical skill to a holistic understanding of human behavior, showing that strength lies not just in action, but in the conscious choice to transcend the compulsions of ego. Through this understanding, Bruce Lee offers a timeless lesson. Ego demands immediate gratification, fleeting validation, and the satisfaction of proving oneself. Wisdom requires patience, strategic insight, and the courage to resist immediate impulses. By prioritizing wisdom over ego, Bruce Lee preserved clarity, maintained dignity, and demonstrated a form of power that is rare, enduring, and profoundly effective. The ability to disengage, to pause, and to act only when truly necessary is one of the most advanced forms of mastery, a principle that can be applied in martial arts, personal relationships, and every challenge life presents. This lesson illuminates the subtle yet immense power of restraint, showing that true strength lies not in reaction, but in conscious, deliberate, and wise choice. Bruce Lee recognized that human interactions are often complicated by the unnecessary introduction of noise, both verbal and physical, which can intensify conflict rather than resolve it. words carry emotion, intention, and often ego, which can amplify misunderstandings or provoke reactions that were never intended. In many situations, people feel compelled to speak or act to assert dominance, defend pride, or clarify their position. Yet such interventions frequently add layers of complexity to otherwise manageable circumstances. Bruce Lee's insight was that by intentionally choosing silence, he removed these complicating factors and allowed the natural flow of events to reveal themselves without interference. Silence became a tool, not a sign of submission, and through it he maintained control over the situation without having to exert physical force or verbal authority. Choosing silence requires extraordinary self-discipline, as the instinct to react, whether through speech or action, is deeply ingrained in human nature. Most individuals feel compelled to respond to provocation, perceiving inaction as weakness or loss of control. Bruce Lee, however, understood that genuine strength is not measured by immediate reaction, but by the ability to maintain composure and patience. By remaining silent, he allowed emotions to settle and clarity to emerge, preventing impulsive decisions that could escalate conflict or create long-term consequences. In his practice, silence was not passive. It was an active form of engagement that demanded awareness, observation, and restraint, ensuring that every choice was deliberate rather than reactive. Silence also functions as a boundary, establishing limits without confrontation. By not responding, Bruce Lee implicitly communicated that certain provocations were beneath his attention or irrelevant to his purpose. This form of nonverbal communication is powerful because it denies others the feedback they seek when attempting to provoke a reaction. It signals confidence, self-control, and the ability to rise above the superficial dynamics of conflict. People often interpret a measured silence as a display of calm authority, and in many cases it naturally diffuses tension. By stepping out of the cycle of provocation and response, Bruce Lee created a space where the pressure and aggression inherent in the situation began to dissipate organically. Silence prevents the distortion of events through exaggeration or misinterpretation. When one reacts immediately through words or actions, the situation becomes subject to public perception, rumor, and personal bias. Each intervention adds potential for misrepresentation, which can escalate disputes or create unnecessary attention. Bruce Lee's decision to remain silent ensured that the encounter retained its original meaning and significance. It allowed him to internalize the lesson without external noise diluting or complicating it. The principle here is that sometimes the most profound influence on a situation comes not from overt action, but from the deliberate choice to observe, reflect, and restrain. Silence is also a way to conserve energy, both mental and physical. Conflict, whether verbal or physical, consumes resources, and premature engagement often wastes these resources on issues that may resolve themselves or prove trivial. Bruce Lee understood that by not reacting impulsively, he preserved his focus and vitality for moments that truly required his skill or judgment. This conservation of energy is a hallmark of strategic thinking. It allows one to allocate effort where it is most effective rather than squandering it on transient provocations. In this way, silence operates as both a defensive and an offensive strategy, protecting one's resources while subtly influencing the outcome. Silence cultivates patience and clarity of mind, qualities essential to both martial arts and life. When confronted with tension, the natural tendency is to respond quickly, but such responses are rarely optimal. By remaining silent, Bruce Lee created mental space to analyze intentions, predict potential consequences, and consider multiple courses of action. This deliberate pause enhances decision-making, ensuring that any subsequent action, if necessary, is executed with full awareness and precision. Silence, in this sense, becomes an active form of mindfulness, sharpening perception and reinforcing the principle that understanding precedes action. Bruce Lee also demonstrated that silence can redirect the energy of conflict toward resolution without confrontation. Most disputes are fueled by continuous exchange, words provoking words, gestures provoking gestures. By breaking this cycle with measured silence, he allowed the tension to lose momentum, giving all parties involved time to reconsider their approach. Silence interrupts the rhythm of aggression, creating an environment where reason can emerge and impulsive escalation is less likely. In essence, it acts as a reset mechanism, diffusing hostility while maintaining control over the situation. Another aspect of silence is its ability to communicate presence and authority without aggression. Bruce Lee's restraint projected confidence and self-assurance, sending a clear signal that he was not easily provoked or manipulated. This type of communication often carries more weight than words, as it conveys inner mastery and composure that cannot be replicated through superficial displays of force. People instinctively recognize the power of someone who does not react immediately, and in many cases, this silent authority discourages challenges before they materialize, demonstrating that influence does not always require explicit action. Silence also encourages reflection in others. When one refrains from reacting, the opposing party is forced to confront their own motivations and behavior. Bruce Lee's non-response created an unspoken mirror, allowing others to evaluate their own intentions and choices. This reflective aspect of silence can prevent unnecessary escalation, as it encourages self-awareness in those who might otherwise act impulsively. By holding back, he influenced the situation indirectly, guiding the dynamics toward resolution without confrontation or loss of face. Silence fosters a long-term perspective. Immediate reactions often address short-term impulses, rather than sustainable outcomes. Bruce Lee's deliberate choice to remain silent emphasized foresight over immediate satisfaction. He understood that reacting hastily could resolve a minor situation but create larger, unforeseen consequences. By prioritizing patience and observation, he ensured that the approach to conflict was not reactive, but strategic, emphasizing outcomes that aligned with reason and principle rather than temporary emotion. Silence is an essential component of emotional regulation. By restraining his urge to respond, Bruce Lee maintained control over his emotional state, preventing anger, frustration, or pride from dictating behavior. Emotional escalation is a primary driver of conflict, and by mastering silence, he neutralized the emotional fuel that typically intensifies disputes. This mastery over internal responses illustrates that true power encompasses not only physical skill, but also mental and emotional discipline, reinforcing the holistic nature of martial and personal mastery. Bruce Lee also understood that silence preserves the integrity of lessons learned. Reacting publicly often transforms an encounter into a story subject to embellishment, rumor, or misinterpretation. By maintaining silence, he safeguarded the authenticity of his experiences, ensuring that the insights gained remained untainted. This deliberate discretion demonstrates that some lessons are too valuable to be diluted by the noise of public attention, emphasizing the power of measured restraint over showmanship. Silence supports ethical engagement. By refraining from immediate action or words, Bruce Lee avoided unnecessary harm to others and upheld a moral standard that valued safety and dignity. Silence becomes a tool of responsibility, ensuring that conflicts are navigated without causing unintended damage. It reflects a commitment to higher principles, demonstrating that true mastery includes consideration for the broader consequences of one's actions. Bruce Lee's use of silence illustrates that power often lies in what is withheld rather than what is expressed. The choice to act or speak is always present, yet by deliberately choosing not to, he exerted influence with subtlety and precision. Silence allowed him to shape outcomes without confrontation, preserve his own well-being, and teach lessons in control, patience, and foresight. In this way, silence becomes not just a strategy, but a defining characteristic of true mastery, revealing that sometimes the hardest and most impactful decisions are those that involve doing nothing at all. Bruce Lee's understanding of mastery extended far beyond the physical and technical realms of martial arts. For him, true mastery was inseparable from wisdom, foresight, and the ability to navigate complex situations without unnecessary risk. Walking away from conflict was not an act of fear or avoidance, but a deliberate choice that required clarity of thought, confidence in one's skills, and an understanding of consequences that many overlook. In a world that often equates success with confrontation, domination, or immediate victory, Bruce Lee recognized that preserving one's well-being, mental, emotional, and physical, was an equally, if not more, significant measure of accomplishment. The decision to disengage reflects a level of control that cannot be faked. It requires the rare combination of strength, patience, and insight. The act of walking away whole also highlights Bruce Lee's recognition of the difference between short-term impulses and long-term outcomes. Many people react to provocations with instinct, ego, or emotion, believing that immediate action will assert dominance or satisfy pride. However, these reactions often carry hidden costs, including injury, regret, or unnecessary escalation. Bruce Lee's choice to refrain demonstrates an understanding that true success is measured not only in moments of achievement, but in the preservation of opportunity, potential, and personal integrity. By choosing to walk away, he maintained the ability to act in the future under optimal conditions rather than exhausting his energy or jeopardizing his safety in a moment that offered no meaningful gain. Walking away also serves as a profound statement about the nature of power. True power is not solely about physical capability or the ability to overwhelm others. It is also about self-regulation, discipline, and the strategic exercise of judgment. Bruce Lee's mastery was evident in his ability to assess situations accurately, weigh risks, and act or refrain from acting in a way that maximized benefits while minimizing harm. The decision to disengage communicates authority, not weakness. Those who are truly skilled do not need to prove themselves in every encounter. Their competence is demonstrated through choices that others might not understand or appreciate at first glance. In this way, walking away whole becomes a subtle yet potent assertion of dominance over circumstance rather than over people. Choosing to walk away whole requires courage that is different from the courage associated with action. Acting in the face of danger often attracts praise and recognition, but choosing restraint, especially when confrontation seems expected, demands an inner fortitude that is rarely visible. Bruce Lee's courage was reflected in his willingness to trust his judgment, manage his impulses, and resist the societal pressure to act for the sake of appearances. This form of bravery emphasizes the mental and emotional aspects of mastery, illustrating that the hardest decisions are often those that involve inaction rather than aggression. It is a courage that protects one's essence, maintaining integrity in the face of provocation. Bruce Lee's decision to walk away whole also highlights his deep understanding of consequence. Every action has repercussions, some immediate, others unfolding over time. By refraining from engagement, he avoided a chain reaction of potential harm to himself and others. This strategic foresight reflects an advanced comprehension of causality, showing that mastery involves anticipating the outcomes of choices both visible and hidden. Walking away is not a passive decision but a calculated one, informed by experience, awareness, and ethical consideration. It demonstrates that the most effective actions often begin with deliberate restraint rather than impulsive response. Walking away whole fosters long-term growth and learning. By disengaging from conflicts that offer no meaningful value, Bruce Lee preserved the space to reflect, analyze, and integrate lessons from each encounter. This approach turns every situation into an opportunity for personal development rather than mere survival or reaction. The wisdom gained from choosing restraint contributes to a broader understanding of strategy, human behavior, and self-mastery. It reinforces the idea that martial arts and life itself are not merely about confrontations won, but about cultivating insight, discernment, and resilience over time. Walking away whole also exemplifies the principle that mastery includes emotional and psychological preservation. Engaging in conflict, even when physically capable of success, can leave lasting psychological effects, including stress, regret, or moral compromise. Bruce Lee understood that true mastery requires maintaining mental and emotional equilibrium, ensuring that one remains intact in every dimension, body, mind, and spirit. By prioritizing wholeness over temporary display, he demonstrated that a master's responsibility extends beyond external achievement to include self-preservation and ethical conduct. Walking away whole communicates an understanding of timing. Bruce Lee recognized that not every moment demands action, and that choosing when to act or not act is a critical aspect of skill. The ability to defer engagement until circumstances are fully favorable reflects patience, strategic thinking, and confidence in one's capabilities. By walking away, he maintained control over timing and context, ensuring that any future action would be deliberate, effective, and aligned with long-term objectives rather than reactive impulses. This choice also illustrates the integration of ethics into mastery. Bruce Lee's decision to disengage was not simply a tactical move, it was an ethical one. He weighed the potential harm to himself and others, the broader consequences of escalation, and the moral responsibility inherent in wielding power. Walking away whole reflects a conscientious application of skill, demonstrating that mastery is inseparable from moral judgment and the responsible use of strength. It teaches that true power respects life well-being, and the integrity of all parties involved. Walking away whole encapsulates the essence of Bruce Lee's philosophy, that mastery is not measured solely by external accolades, victories, or public recognition, but by internal consistency, disciplined decision-making, and the ability to act in accordance with reason rather than impulse. By choosing restraint, he preserved his energy, his dignity, and his potential for future growth. The lesson is profound. The hardest and most meaningful victories are often those where nothing appears to happen, yet the outcomes, clarity, preservation, and insight are profound and enduring. In choosing to walk away whole, Bruce Lee revealed a dimension of mastery that few truly comprehend, one that prioritizes wisdom, foresight, and the courage to preserve oneself above all. What makes Bruce Lee's choice to do nothing truly remarkable is not the absence of action, but the presence of intention. In a world that glorifies movement, confrontation, and immediate results, he demonstrated that the most profound decisions often occur in stillness. Walking away was not surrender, it was a deliberate assertion of control, a testament to his understanding of consequence, and a reflection of wisdom that transcends skill. The lesson for all of us is clear. Mastery is not only measured by what we do, but by what we choose not to do. In choosing restraint, Bruce Lee preserved clarity, safety, and dignity, showing that true strength lies in discernment, patience, and the courage to value wholeness over recognition. This silent decision teaches that sometimes the most powerful statement we can make is made not with our fists, but with our judgment, foresight, and the unwavering resolve to protect what truly matters.